Hello YouTubes, it is finally time to get started on our lake slash national park area. No more beating about the bush, no more procrastination, no more delays, no more excuses. Let's just do it. Okay, here is the plan. Roughly, this is going to be the area of the lake, some sort of island in the middle, and then there's going to be a little access road path. It's not really going to be a road, it's more like a dirt track going all the way around, and it will go all the way around the edge of this path, water, but the path's going to come up and go near the rails to leave this section here free for campsite or whatever else we decide to put in there. The main thing is I want to draw where I want this path to be, and then we can just chop in and start making a lake. And I don't want to make it too deep, because the deeper it is, the more resin, epoxy, water stuff I would need to pour in, and that's quite expensive, so let's not do that. Right, let's draw a path. Now, I did think about doing a sort of bridge over this section, but that's just giving us more work, so we'll just keep the path all the way around the edge. At this point here, it's going to veer off and go around here, and I'll probably have a line of trees between the path and the rails. So let's see then. Path. It's going to also have maybe a crossing over the rails up that way. Okay. Right, so the outside of the path, leave enough room for some trees and shrubbery. And the other side of the path, around here. Wide enough for one vehicle, okay? And that's going to go all the way up here, and it will meet up with the other side of the path, but there's going to be a sort of Y junction for access into the park area itself. So let's say, again, I want to leave as much room as possible, so I'm going to take the path right up to the rails. So this path is going to be, got a bit of room there between the road and the water for something else in there. Okay, so that's our path sorted, okay. A little access road probably going in. Let's go in there and there. A little kiosk to pay for your campsite. So that's that whole area. That's a decent sized area. Obviously it's going to slope in a bit for the beach at one point, and maybe a little dock for a boat somewhere. So that's going to be the main area to get into the water. Everything else is going to be mostly cliff going into the water. That sounds good to me. Right, let's find my hot wire cutter. So I had to buy a new hot wire cutter because the one that I use and I love didn't have the attachment I needed. I needed this carving tool. The other one was more just a long line, which we might still use, but I'm going to need this one to cut round the edge at least. So let's hope it works. Where will we start? I really want to get that far side done. We'll start here so you can at least see what I'm doing. And we want it kind of sloping. Oh, it doesn't really matter at the moment. Ooh, yummy. It doesn't have to be perfect. And try not to get too deep. So far it's holding the heat quite well. Okay, getting there. Just give it a wee break, give it a chance to heat up again. So I might need to go a wee bit deeper than that, but that's okay. We will get the general shape done first, okay, and then we can go deeper. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's get the island done. Lovely. So this works. Yeah, basically we tried it on a live stream and I kind of went a bit too deep, so I'll probably end up gluing that bit back in. That's way too thick. That would be a lot of resin to fill that amount of depth. So what I need to do is basically carve out everything else, but only take it down maybe an inch at the most, okay? Smoky. I now have my basic lake carved out and it looks absolutely garbage. Don't worry, long way to go. I know I do have big lines here, but I can maybe attack that again with my hot wire cutter, get rid of these lines. First thing I really want to do is get it all painted, just a base colour dark to get rid of all the white. And I need to take this out, glue it back down, but before I glue it back down, I'm going to paint in here because there's no way I'm going to get paint in these gaps once that's glued in place. So I'll remove this, paint in there, paint all around here, just dark brown paint for now. It's not going to stay dark brown, but as I say, I just want to get rid of all the white and then we can start on the next. The other thing I could use to disguise any lines is maybe use some of these slate stones, some gravel, randomly, not stripy, because we do not want it to look unnatural, right? Okay, let me get some brown paint, slap it all over that. Okay, that looks marginally less crap. Let's wait for all that paint to dry and then I'll stick in that wee extra piece with some hot glue and then we can move on to the next bit, okay? Okay, it's actually been a couple of days. I've let that completely dry. That's glued in and I've actually squidged in a lot of white glue in there to hopefully seal any gaps for the resin, but I do have a concern. How do we know that the resin is going to stay on top of the styrene and not just dissolve it and go all the way through to the underside of the layout? let's try a little experiment with a bit of bare styrene, not even painted. I'm going to gouge a little hole or a little dip in this, pour in some resin, leave it overnight, and see if it pokes through the bottom or if it sits there quite nicely, because I'm pretty sure the styrene is sealed. There's like 3 inches of it and I've only gone 1 inch down. So I don't think it's going to, as long as it holds its shape and doesn't dissolve, I think we'll be okay. But let's try it out in this first, shall we? Okay, let's carve out a mini lake, shall we? We'll go halfway into this stuff. That should do it. Right, let me go and dig out the resin. That'll be fine. So I will be using this stuff. Eportist or something. It's quite expensive, so I don't want to waste it, but we will mix whatever ratio it is together, pour it into that little divot, see what happens, shall we? So the instructions say it is a 50-50 mix, so I'll just eyeball this. Oh goodness. That's probably too much. And I'll do the same in here. Actually, I'll do a little bit more in one of them because I'm going to pour one into the other and half of it's going to stay in there, isn't it? So let's just, it doesn't have to be perfect at the moment. Oh, that one's a bit thicker. It's very similar. Right. So there's a wee bit, no, they're pretty much exactly the same. Ah, well, sure it'll still work. Let's pour this in here. When it comes to doing it properly, I'll get measuring, mixing cups with little markers on them, make life easier. But this should do for our little experiment, I think. Okay, now we mix it for 5 to 10 minutes. And I'll tell you what else I'm going to do, because that's actually going to be too much just for that little divot, I think. So I will actually pour just a little bit somewhere on this section I've painted, just to see if there's any sort of weird reaction with the paint. I will be adding more paint to that, by the way, but not until I know this is going to seal, because if that's not going to seal this in or prevent this from dripping through to the bottom, then I need to seal it with something. So there's no point painting it and then sealing it. Well, maybe I paint it then. I don't know. I'm just making conversation while I stir this for 5 to 10 minutes. Let's just fast forward. Ah, that'll do it. Right, bring the test subject in. This will be funny if it just melts it straight away and goes all the way through to the bottom. I'm going to bring it right up to the top because I want to also see if it's going to shrink. Right, so that should be a bit level. Just make sure it's all the way to the edge. Perfectly level. Okay. And I will put that on the island for now. And I'm just going to pour a little bit right there. And see what happens. So far it looks great. I'll report back in the morning. Or tomorrow afternoon, because it's quite late already. Our little experiment is complete, and it is not good news, I'm afraid. It looks really nice. That still looks wet, but it's actually dry, which is great. However, I put this puddle on top of another bit of foam to emulate what's going on here, and as you can see, it's stuck, which means it's leaked. Oh goodness, yeah, that definitely melted through.
wonder if it's enough though. I mean, it didn't melt through a lot, but it did drop the height a little bit, as you can see. I'm wondering if I keep adding paint to build up the protection, if you like, because I didn't pour this on top of paint, so we don't really know. And it doesn't look as if it leaked through that section that does have the paint. It's obviously ran down there, but I've still got a big blob there. So I think maybe just with more paint will be okay. Other than that, I would need to seal it all up either with Sculptamold or maybe even white glue might do, but I'm not sure how I could paint on top of white glue. It might go a bit weird. Let me think about that. Also, this was quite thick, and I was planning on building this stuff up in layers, so maybe 1/4 of an inch at a time, which might help reduce the amount of heat, because it's partly heat that's causing this melting. It's not the end of the world.
You know what? I'm just going to go for it. We do have other things to do before we can pour any water. Obviously, we're a fair bit away from that because we need to do all the surrounding areas. The island itself, it's a little bit flat. Might need to put a little bit of height undulation on that. And remove the other section of the cut. Get that out of the way because I need to do some paint work underneath that. Right, let's see what we're going to do down there. Let us carefully remove our half a cut. The reason I've not stuck this down yet is because there's a big gap in the underside, and when I remove it you'll see one. The other thing is over there I've got a set of points and that I need to add a points motor to, which is going to sit a bit here, so I'm going to have to carve out a hole in the underside of this for the point motor to sit on, or carve a hole out in the base, which is why this isn't glued down yet. Okay, let me give this a quick vacuum and then we'll just put down a base coat of this brown, which is a wee bit lighter than that brown. It doesn't matter. It's all going to get covered with gravel and grass and stones and trees and shrubbery, so this is really just to hide all this styrene. It's obviously still styrene, but I need to clean that up first. Right, let's get some brown paint everywhere. No point doing it all under there, that's going to be covered anyway. But I do want to use some of this just on the edge here, just to lighten it from the brown, because I don't want this brown right at the edge. It will, again, be getting covered, but let's just do it. a bit like Mars at the moment. Hopefully it will dry a bit darker.
Just in case you were worried about this giant chasm in here, I will be filling that with little stones, but not just in a straight line. I need to kind of disperse it to make it look a bit more natural. So that area will be a wee bit shallow and treacherous for boating, so there'll need to be some little signs saying, you know, shallow water. But yeah, I really hope this dries a bit darker than this, otherwise I'll need to put another coat on. Okay, I'll bring you back when this is all dry and we'll move on to the next step.
Okay, that layer of paint's dry. It looks a bit less like Mars now. Still a bit light, but I'll show you and then we can go on to the good stuff. Right, here's the plan. We need to add depth to this so that we don't have to use 3 feet of water, okay? So we're going to start between that side and that side, and in the centre it will be black. Yes, black. Acrylic black. From this section to here, we're going to add some, what is this? Ocean Breeze, okay? Small section of that. And then at the very edge, we're going to just blend it in with some brown. So we have got black in the middle, light green on either side of the black, and then brown at the very edge. Let's just dive in. If it looks horrible, we can start over. As they say, or at least as I say, perfect is the enemy of done. Let's do it. Now, I know what you're thinking, Dave, that looks shit, and I'm inclined to agree. However, we won't know for sure until that dries, we get some stones in it, and then get the water on top. So I guess it's another waiting game. See you tomorrow.
I decided there was other things I can be doing while I'm waiting for that paint to dry. Paint at the edge is drying fairly quickly, so I've got my little stones in covering that big divot that I cut out. So what I think I'll do is do a wee mixture of gravel, do it all the way around the edge, maybe add in some bigger rocks. I also had to add a bit more slope to the beach area because it only sloped down to there. I probably have to add a wee bit more because the putty that I used is kind of sunk there at the edge. It might cover with the glue in the sand, but I'll wait till that dries before I continue. But at the moment, I'm going to put some of this gravel all the way around the edge. I might use some of these rocks, although they're kind of bright. So what I might do is put these rocks in a little tub, do a bit of a black wash over them before I put them in place, because they're a wee bit obvious. They're a bit too bright. If I was to, for example, put that in here, it's way too white. So let me mix them up a bit, put them in a tub, cover them in I don't know, a black wash of some description, shake them about, put them somewhere to dry. It's worth a shot. It's not looking any better, is it?
Okay, here's my thinking. The more garbage that I put into the lake, the less resin I'll need to pour, right? Question is, should I glue all that in place or just let the resin do the work? You know what, I'll think about that overnight. I really need to wait for the paint to dry. I don't want to do anything stupid at this point. I'm actually quite liking it.
The paint on the edges is drying fairly quickly, but obviously that's going to take a while to dry in the middle. And the resin is going to come up to cover most of the rocks. There's going to be bits of rock sticking out, which is fine. You would see that in real life, I think. And also, and got to wait for that to dry from a beach. Once that's dry in the morning, I'll paint that probably just brown and then glue and then put some sand on it, and that's going to be our little beach. And it's going to come up, the water's going to come up about halfway up the beach. So that's the idea for that. And I did remember to leave a little space for my little jetty, which is going to sit a bit there. I'm printing off another one for the island. But I might actually print off another one for over there somewhere. Maybe there. Anyway, I think it's looking not too bad at the moment.
See if I feel the same way in the morning. See you in a bit.
Well, it's been 24 hours since we met last, and in that time I did actually glue all of this down. All my little stones. So I used white glue, third white glue, 2/3 water. A bit like I do the ballast. Oh, there's a missing bit there. Need to fix that. Anyway, back to the lake. So I had to wait for all that to dry. There's a bit of a shiny bit there. Right there. But it is dry. It's just a wee bit shiny, which I'm not too worried about, because once the resin goes over the top, everything's going to be shiny. At least I hope so. So last thing I need to do then, before we pour any resin, is make my little beach.
So unfortunately, this area did crack a fair bit, but the good news is I don't care. So we're going to cover all this section in white glue and then sprinkle on some sand. That's probably too much. Everything above the sand is probably going to be grass. Maybe some stones. Maybe a mixture of both. Let's see. Let's take the sand round to there. I need to make sure I get the glue everywhere, because the sand will not have patches. Beaches don't have bare patches. Bare patches. That reminds me, I need to print off some more bears. Don't have enough bears on the layout. I mean, there shouldn't be any bears on the beach, except maybe some bear people. Oh, found some loose stones. Not to worry, the glue will take care of that. I'm just talking to fill in the awkward silence. Don't worry, we're nearly done. Nearly done. Nearly done. And this big crack, or not so much a crack along here, the difference where it's sunk, I'll just add more sand to level it out. The water will probably come up to there anyway, so I'm not too bothered about that. Okay, I think we're just about done with the glue. Right, okay, I'm going to take my time with this, because I don't want big clumps of sand. I want it to be as smooth as possible, so I'm not going to rush it like I do with everything else. Okay, I think you've heard enough of me. There we go. Almost looks like a beach. So what we need to do is wait for that to dry, or at least the under level, and then I will spray over some scenic glue to seal it all in place, because only the bottom layer of that sand is going to be stuck. It's very white, but that's okay. Once we get some grass around here, it'll be a really nice contrast. Well, I think this part of the video is long enough, okay? The next part where I pour the resin, possibly going to be doing it in 3 layers, so it's going to take a lot of time because I'm going to have to wait for each layer to dry. But in between those drying periods, or during those drying periods, we can be doing other things. But for now, that's it. Hope you like it so far. Tough luck if you don't. I like it, and that's the main thing, right? My way, my rules, and all that nonsense. Anyway, take care. I'll see you very soon. I'm pouring that tomorrow, but you won't see it for a few days, sorry. Exciting stuff. Bye for now.